Picture this. A crew climbs aboard their capital class combat vessel that's primary motive of existing is to functionally move large torpedoes. And they find no torpedoes. You have now entered the Polaris zone. Okay, so there has been a major change in the builds and is here to stay. CIG has confirmed through Waka that once you claim any vessel, you will not get missiles or torpedoes back as part of the ship claim. So regardless of why you lost it, you will have to pay for them out of pocket with in-game funds. And those funds are dramatically large. You can use the chapters below to jump ahead if you just want to see the price or whatnot. The price is. Thank you to my long subscribers sticking around. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already. And this is kind of where the rubber meets the road. So directly after IAE has ended and everyone's options are gone, what we have found is that now Polarises and Tallies and Eclipses have seen a hard nerf. This is what you will find when you claim your Polaris. If it's glitches out or it gets blown up in a fair fight or a not so fair fight, it doesn't matter why. It matters that you will have to pay for 500,000 UEC torpedoes to replace it. Each. If these prices hold, remember this is the EPTU Wave 1, but if these prices hold, it is 500k per size 10 torpedo, the only type of size 10 torpedo available for the ship currently. And you'll note that 290k through 390k, depending on which type of size 9 is your favorite, for your Eclipse or your Retaliator. And no, you can't put the size 9s in the size 10 Polaris, just in case you were wondering to save some money. So what's frustrating is that this was not clearly communicated when players had all sorts of options, because some players probably would have melted their Polarises, especially if they paid full price for them, and picked up a Perseus, which is going to be one of the next ships coming out, which won't have 500k things. And here's some of the glitches that I've personally experienced. The very reason that my ship didn't have torpedoes is because I glitched through this ship and then died outside of it. And this is the type of nonsense that you will face. Now, once again, it is EPTU Wave 1, but I refuse to believe that 4.0 Live will not have a single glitch that will result in you losing your ship. Here's another glitch that nearly lost me my ship. This was not even on me, this one. The other one wasn't at all either, but this one especially. Literally, I thought the ship was going to knock me into the hangar. It just went crazy. Coming out, it phased into the floor. The floor became real, and then it didn't become real. And then the ship kind of did a flipper thing. I don't know what was going on with it. Like the dolphin. And then there's another one I have of this where I fall through the floor and die, but at least the ship doesn't die. Any of these, if the ship must be claimed, you will lose the torpedoes. I hope that CIG can flag that and be able to change it before 4.0 Live, that if you are claiming the ship within your hangar and it had a specific number of weapon systems, torpedoes and missiles and such. By the way, the smaller missiles also are impacted by this, including the ones on the Polaris itself. I hope that it can flag for that, and then it will not lose those torps. So if you're literally in your own hangar, and because the hangar has glitched and broken, and you had, let's say you had 12 size 10 torpedoes, and you had your assortment of smaller missile systems, it should track the number you had, and then when you file your claim, you get those back if it all happened within your specific hangar. So if you never left your hangar, then basically, and then you file a claim, you never established a gateway to leave, etc. I don't see a problem with having that change over. I did want to leave this in, showing that the ship did recover from that incident where it was doing backflips, but it is kind of jarring to see a capital class vessel doing crazy stunts like that. And if this ship was loaded down with, say, a whole rack of 4 revolving 6 round size 10 torpedoes, I would be sweating it a lot because I'd go, oh God, if I have to claim this dang thing, I'm going to be screwed, right? Here's the one where I phased through the floor myself, but the ship saves itself as the floor magically disappears and then it comes back again. So where does this kind of leave me on the Polaris? I've always been interested in this ship, but it's never been my favorite. I've always been one of the people that said it will be balanced, and this appears to be CIG attempting to do a balance on torpedo vessels specifically because of the way the prices just dramatically scale with the size of the weapon system. In this case, size 9 and size 10 torps are the real losers here in the price war anyway. I'm not saying they're not proficient in any way. I think that they have a lot of issues. I've brought this up before in my days in Eve. I've brought it up where destroyable weapons, like all the Caldari weapons that fire giant weapons of death, like torpedoes and such, off their dreadnought, makes, ironically named the Phoenix, not our Phoenix, but that ship's named the Phoenix. Anyway, that ship is not as liked by most players because its torpedoes can be destroyed while they're en route, versus all the other weapon systems that are gun-based cannot be destroyed while they're en route. But the missile platform can change its weapon damage types. At least it could back when I played. So that was the one silver lining to that thing. The main silver lining, I should say. Now, where am I going with this? There's two things to think about. The torpedoes are not 100% reliable. I did a video where a single size 10, if it does manage to hit a carrack, it can kill it instantly. And there is no PDCs on a turret. There is no PDC turrets on a carrack. And other larger vessels, C2, M2, A2, they're all fodder for size 10s. But it has to hit. So if the server is acting up and you have bad server FPS, the Polaris will not be able to effectively defend without spending a ton of resources, firing off multiple additional torpedoes. Additionally, many people have talked about in the comment section, you can try to outrun these things. But a smart Polaris player will set you up for failure on that, where they will literally be in your line of path of where you're trying to go and then fire, and then you're trying to not be able to just fly in a straight line to get away. Additionally, you have to actually see them, etc., etc. But that's all moot point if it costs them millions of UEC worth of torps to have one where it actually properly tracks you and runs after you and kills you. There is such a thing as balance through price for most players. There will still be the trolls that will absolutely blow through as much. It could cost 100 million UEC to kill something, but if you tell them they can one-shot random things once in a while, they will do it, especially any ship without PDCs. So, they have a pretty good chance of pulling this off. They will do it. They will show up just to do it. So I'm not saying that it's perfect, but I see this as CIG attempting to balance this vessel through the cost of the weapon platform. Additionally, the death of this ship is significant. And while I did give a little bit of a nod to the Perseus at the beginning of this, saying, oh, well, I'll just use a Percy because the guns, etc., can't be destroyed en route and stuff. We don't know the cost of the final cost of ammunition for larger capital class and quasi-cap size capped, like ship-to-ship turret type weapon systems. So when you start talking about these bigger and bigger and bigger ammunition types, they may be going this direction as well. Like, okay, they don't have torpedo guidance systems and such, but they've got a lot of smart munition systems in them and safety features. They could just write it that way and just say, okay, they each shell cost something, and if you add it up, the damage that 5 shells does is the same as one size 10 torpedo, and the cost of 5 shells is only 2/3 of what a single torpedo cost. And you have more reliable damage on target, but still that risk, if the ship gets blown up and then you go to claim and you don't get the ammo, you're still in the same boat. So I see this as the canary in the coal mine. I think the missiles and the torps no longer being resupplied with insurance claims is a sign of what is to come for ammunition of all kinds. And that also, I'm going to go on a ledge and say drones as well would make sense for them not to be included with the insurance, which would be a big deal for the BLD, the Star Lancer BLD, the construction variant that's coming up, the Apollo series. The Carrack has drone bay, but I don't know if it comes with them, to be fair. The Nautilus, you know, it's like resupply drones for its mines, like all different kinds. That is like a big deal because those drones are complex the creatures that these ships all need. The Vulcan, for goodness sake, you know, all these resupplying drones and weapon system drones and all sorts of crazy things, utility drones. If they start costing money to resupply every single time the ship goes pop, that's gonna be a big problem, especially for ships that are in riskier positions, taking those risks. Here's another glitch I included, just showing you, trying to get out after I've had the gateway assigned, after I've seen all the animations go by. You still kind of are hitting this invisible wall above the hangar, trying to actually phase into the real world. Now, once again, some of these glitches will be ironed out by 4.0 Live, but there'll be new ones and there'll be other things. And will it be smoother? Yes. Will there still be glitches? Yes. Will there still be glitches that could cost you your torpedoes? Yes. Oh, strategy on torpedoes. What I recommend is considering having 2 in each cylinder or 3 in each cylinder of your Polaris. And why I say that is because the way the system fires, there's 4 launch tubes, and each tube is supported by a single cylinder. So if you're given 6, 6, 6, and 6, nobody says you have to leave them in there in those cylinders. You can use a tractor beam, yank them out of there, and put them away in your cargo, in your cargo elevator. So I would only leave 2 in each one of the cylinders. And then if the ship goes pop, you only, at maximum, you only lose 8 of your size 10 torpedoes. And then also, it brings up the interesting topic of we got to figure out which way these things cycle. So one of the things I want to do is get some crew together and kind of practice that in the PTU. Basically buy a few and play this out, like, okay, do they cycle clockwise or counterclockwise? So we put it at the 12 o'clock position at the top and then just to the left of that, or do we go just to the right of that with the second one and then test it out, run it out, fire a whole volley, run it out, fire another volley, and then yes, we only have the size 6 weapons and the other turrets and such and the smaller missiles left after that, but we're not risking the entire loadout of the ship. So mission specific loadouts I think are important, and they will significantly reduce the risk assessment for your missions, for the death of the ship, etc. It won't sting as much. So that's the only real lesson I have on this. I hope these prices get balanced down a little bit. Oh my kidding, the size 9 ones need to be drastically lowered, but 500k for the size 10 is too much. I think it would make sense around the 200k price point, 220, 250 tops, and then bring the size 9s down to about 100 to 150, you know, top them out there, ideally smaller than that, maybe 90k through 110, 120, trying to give it some sort of like tiering system, but not doubling it. It's not the same as the weapon system. Oh, it's a bigger weapon, double the size, therefore double the price. That doesn't really balance well here when you're going to lose them all and you can't have them covered by insurance. You're paying out of pocket for all this. Yes, capitals are supposed to be expensive to run, but they shouldn't be so prohibitively expensive that entire orgs hesitate at pulling one of these out for actual missions that it's supposed to do. And let's not forget the payouts on these missions are not high enough to justify the repair bills, the amount of crew, and then on top of that, these massive weapon cost changes. And yes, CIG has said that they've reduced the cost of fuel, repairs, and fuses of all things. Fuses were never expensive, but sure, people were yanking them off the ships on the IAE show floor. So I assume somebody thought they were worth keep hanging on to, even though we're going to have a full-on wipe at 4.0 when it hits live. But at the end of the day, a cylinder of these missiles, of these torpedoes, should not be punishing a small org willing to run this ship, because there's no financial way for them to even just break even. Like, they should be able to break even on contracts that they take. And yes, I understand that in the long run, people will be running around in a Hull D, and they'll be desperate to have something like a Polaris to help guide them through, to protect them as they move that giant ship, or and have a small support fleet surrounding that, no less, as well. Or having these systems to be able to fight the Vandal and these massive, gorgeous fights. I get it. But we're not in that realm right now. And even the biggest Save Stanton events, the payouts just aren't that high when we're talking about risking a ship that if you lose the load of torps, you're just not making anything. And even if you stay alive, you unload every single torp trying to do your job, trying to kill these Idrises in the Save Stanton event, you're not making much at all for what you're using and consuming. And once again, in the short term, we need to consider that, at least let them break even when they're using the ship correctly and not just trolling people. Because plain and simple, there is no end game right now for them. There is no, I'm going to go defend the Hull D or the Orion mining the belt, and be, on station supporting my large org indie operations. There's nothing like that. Or take an outpost off of an enemy, and this is going to be lucrative for my org, but it's going to costly for us in the long term, sure. But this is a brand new ship that's very hot right now, and a lot of people picked up. And I don't think this was a wise move to do this quickly. I feel like it was a move, an account of what I reported and many others did. I don't think it's because what I was saying. I think I'm just one of the many in the crowd that were yelling it, that, hey, ships like the Carrack are sitting ducks to this thing. Ships like the Hercs are sitting ducks to this thing. Is that what you really want, CIG? Is that what you want? Is just these things rolling around pyro, insta-popping everything that moves when you're talking about TDD, TTD, time to disable, and having crews that are able to defend and respond and drag out a fight so they have a chance. And now you handed a weapon system out that like insta pops these ships, and in perfect conditions you might be able to run from it, but when you're not in those perfect conditions, you one mistake, one torp, you eat it and you're dead. It is just insanity. If you want a game that has those longer distances, it almost feels like everyone's playing like a cover shooter, where like you have to move from point to point and take cover, and you progress through elements on your equipment that like increases your armor and increases this, and you're supposed to talk with your teammates and work together, and that's like what they're trying to build, but like in a ship. And then they introduce a 50 cal sniper rifle that just takes everybody out in one hit, and they can be sitting off in like practically near the edge of the field, and they can just do all that, and there's nothing you can do about it with all this equipment you handed them. It feels like it's not meshing well, and the price change is a massive band-aid attempt to stymie and slow down anybody who would consider just rolling around pyro, insta-popping everything that moves with these size 10s. I've heard suggestions about limiting the amount of things they can target. That's an interesting idea. I'm not saying I support it, but I'd like to see where that goes. Consider what the implications of that are. I've seen people talk about having the torpedoes faster but do less damage. So the idea being that they're like super size 9s. That's another interesting idea. But then you go back up to the side of, well, there does need to be maybe this 500k option for just anti-capital work that does full damage, that only can target them, or it's very easy to jam it out if you're not in a capital, because your SIG is even a big SIG that's not as capital. Back to that, it's like a quasi version of the original idea if somebody pushed. I don't know if any of that makes sense. I'm just telling you what right now is in the EPTU 4.0 Wave 1, and I'm telling you these prices, if they stick, are going to make a lot of people upset because it's coming right up against the insurance change where you're not getting your missiles and torps back. And I know I'm beating a drum here, I'm repeating myself, so I'm going to call it. Thank you again for sticking around to my long-term subscribers and putting up with me. Take care, y'all.